There's a green reading method that is so insanely fast and accurate, it's almost as if the perfect green read just jumps in front of your face every time. No, it's not tour read or plumb bobbing or aim point or any of those other methods. You don't have to stomp and walk around the green. While it's math and science based, you don't have to even do any calculations on the course. It's fast, simple, and unlike anything that most of you have ever seen before. In this video, we're going to talk about what it is, show you how to do it, and answer a lot of the questions that some of you have already been asking or will be asking. So this is a speed square. This angle right here is a 90-degree angle. It's a right triangle. And no matter where I move this speed square, this angle stays at 90 degrees, which means this side is perfectly vertical. And if it's on slope that way, it's still perfectly vertical to that slope, no matter what happens. So if I could stand this speed square on a surface like a golf green, as I've done here, this line would be straight, vertical, perpendicular with the slope of the ground. And so I've extended that with a straight stick here and alignment rod. Now this speed square, because there's slope on this ground, this speed square is tilted like that, the base of it to reflect that slope. And there's an angle right here. That's the angle of slope. I'm taking percentage of slope and converting it to an angle without doing any math. And so now you don't have to worry that you didn't pay attention in 10th grade geometry. So there's an angle here. Now right triangle geometry, again, you should have learned this in the 10th grade, but I know most of us didn't pay attention or we've forgotten, and that's cool. Right triangle geometry says if I take this angle and I hang a straight line from it, or a plumb line as I've done here, and again this method is not plumb bobbing, but it is using part of the principles of that. If I hang this string line here, you can tell the sticks are perpendicular to the slope and the plumb line is perpendicular to gravity, but there's an angle here between the sticks and the string. Right triangle geometry says that this angle, the difference between the perpendicular to the ground alignment sticks and the perpendicular to gravity string line, is the same as the angle created by the slope on the base of the speed square. Well, that doesn't really help me that much because that means the ground is sloping this way, and if I look at that angle, it's going to point me on the low side of the hole. So what do? And what I can do is extend this string line. So let's do that here. And you'll notice as I extend that string line and keep it straight, this is true vertical and this is perpendicular to the ground. And now there's an angle here. And guess what? This angle, according to right triangle geometry, is the same as the angle of the string down below and is also exactly the same as the angle of the right triangle, the speed square, on the surface of the slope. And what that means is all of a sudden the angle and the aiming point has now popped up right here in front of my face. Gosh, if there was only a way to choose that and do that and make this the aiming point for starting my putts, I might have something here that would be math-based and accurate and didn't require any calculation or any special skills. Well, I can do that, and here's how. First, I'm going to spread my feet wide apart. Now this is important. I need a wide base because this gives me the break on which I'm standing in a 3 or 4 foot circle. It's also absolutely critical that I stand over the ball at the ball because this is the slope I'm measuring. I don't want to stand behind it like I'm plumb bobbing or deal with something. I want to measure just the slope on which the ball is standing and the slope all the way to the hole. So I line up with my feet wide apart. Now, I'm like the right triangle there, the speed square on the ground. But I want my spine to extend up like these alignment rods. So I stand there, feet wide apart, my spine pointed straight at the hole. Now it's critical that you have your feet wide apart because if you stand with your feet close together, you can tweak or adjust your spine a little bit and be off. You want to be absolutely perpendicular, and the wider you can stand with your feet and your weight balanced on your hips, the more your spine is going to reflect how much slope there is. So now, hole is here, my spine is here with a little bit of slope. That way, not because I've tilted it, because I'm standing on that line. Pointed straight at that line with the center of my chest all the way down through my zipper, straight at that target line from the ball. Now, I need to add the string line, or the line that's perpendicular to the ground, so I can't put it on the ground. And you have a putter that you can use. Now it's important, if you've seen videos that I've posted on plumb bobbing or other videos I've posted on this method, it's important that you calibrate your putter unless you have a mass balanced putter. You know, some putters are putted where the toe hangs down or it's face up, face balanced. Those will twist and rotate, and so they won't hang in a perfectly straight line. My Honu is mass balanced, so no matter where I put it, it works. I put it the same way all the time to remind me of that. But I've done videos out there on how to calibrate your putter using a door frame or something so it hangs perfectly vertical. So you get your putter in hand, feet spread wide, spine pointed straight at the target. Now you want to turn your head, not your shoulders, only your head, until your eye is aligned straight with that line that you're looking at with your spine. Spine, eye. If I leave my eye turned over here, then I'm looking over there and not over here at the hole. The angles are going to be wrong. I see a lot of people make this mistake when they're trying to use this method. So turn, now my eye is in line with my spine, and I sometimes put my hand here. So out of my peripheral vision, I can tell my right eye, which I use, is immediately over the top of my fingers, which are right in the middle of my chest. I'm straight on the line, and my shoulders are square to that. Now take my putter, set to where it's perfectly vertical, and hold it up right in front of this eye. Mistake I see a lot of people make, especially let's say you're right-handed, you're going to hold your putter out here a little bit. Well, now I'm not lining up straight on the line. That's going to be a problem. You're going to think everything breaks right to left, and it doesn't. So again, spine pointed directly at the hole, feet spread wide, eye adjusted. Now, on this straight line from the hole to the ball, you want to imagine a perfectly straight line. Pick a target somewhere along that line. Perfect world, that target would be 3 feet in front of you, like for me, and you can't see it in this camera angle, but there's a piece of pine straw on the ground there about 3 feet in front of me, and it's not exactly on the line. The line's about that much to the side of it, but that's okay. I'm going to aim there. But you pick that straight line, and then you hold your putter up directly in front of your eye, and you sight the lower end of your putter shaft on that line, and ideally at that target point. And sometimes I can't make that work. The target's just not there. That's why I love imagining a straight line. Pick a target along that straight line, and then if it's too far out or whatever, I can move the putter straight up and down. But again, not over here, not here, directly in front of my eye that's aligned with my spine. Critical that you do that, or you don't have the same setup that surveyors would use, and they used for years to build roads and buildings and etc., and make straight lines and walls and adjust for slope and curve. You got to set up exactly like I'm telling you. In fact, the only way you'll ever miss with this, because it's based in math, it's straight ahead simple, the mathematics of a right triangle. The only way you'll miss is if you're not set up properly to do this. So now you do this, and you hold your putter up to that, and in this particular putt, it breaks that way, and I don't have a putt here, I'm looking at the camera, but from me to the camera, which I'm calling the hole, it breaks that way. As I do that, the bottom of my putter shaft align with a straight line to the camera lens, and I look up the shaft, which is hanging true vertical, and it's out at the opposite end of my camera, away from the lens, the other side. So hole is here. I'm seeing that angle or gap about here. So that's my target line. Now there's some calibration from this point for speed and distance, and I'll do that in another video just to keep this from going excessively long. I'll put that video up 1 week after this one, so it'll go up April 18th, 2025. But you get the point. There's a starting line, and then there's a calibration for the speed of the greens, a little bit of adjustment for uphill or downhill. But look what I've made happen here. Standing right in front of me, no time, no stomping around all over the green, no second guessing. I hold my putter up. I've got a start line that I know is mathematically accurate and correct. That'll help you make a lot more putts. And I'm going to illustrate that right here, right now. I have a ball here on the ground where I've placed the speed square, and I'm going to stand to the side so that you can look at that. I've done this with this aid that I've created here from the speed squares, the alignment sticks, and the plumb bob line, and I've done it by hand with my body. So let's set up, and I've identified out there in the distance a blue tee that I've used for the starting point. I've read this putt using the speed square and the alignment rod and plumb bob. I've also read it standing there and using my method, and I've identified a target starting line, which is the blue tee out there in the distance. Now I'm going to have to adjust a little bit right of that blue tee for the speed of these greens, and we'll cover that in a future video when I talk about calibration and walk you through it very completely. But let's see how accurate this method actually is. So this putt's about 30 feet, not that that matters. I have the other camera set up, and the lens of that camera is straight over the tee that I've put in the ground as a marker there for a starting line. So the angle may look a little bit funny, I don't know, but here we go. I'm going to set up and start the ball at that tee at the speed I think will take it about 1 foot past the hole if I miss. Okay, so the speed was off. I'm about 6 inches short. I told you, based on calibrating to the speed of these greens today, I'd have to start a little bit right of that blue tee I put in the ground, which I did. The ball broke exactly like we expected, and here it is, 6 inches from the hole. A couple other key things that'd be wrong for me to leave out, and then we'll talk about some questions that a lot of golfers have about this method. First key thing is you absolutely have to be able to control speed and distance, as I illustrated here on the putt that I'm. Second thing we have to understand is good putt and made putts and the difference between those. Because you see a lot of people think, oh, if it didn't go in the hole, it wasn't a good putt. Folks, that's not true. A good putt is a putt that you start online and at the speed that you wanted to roll it. Now, whether it goes in or not has factors that you can't control. Maybe it's wind, maybe the greens are bumpy, maybe you miss the read a little bit, although this method will help you eliminate missed green reads. So that's a good putt. A made putt has to do with distance. Remember, from 10 feet, PGA Tour pros drop down to about 40% of their putts in the hole. So here's what I'm going to give you as your new definition for made putt. 5 feet or less, made putt is in the hole. 8 feet or less, a made putt is anything that finishes within 6 inches of the hole. 15 feet, a made putt is anything that finishes within a foot in the hole, within a foot of the hole. 20, foot and a half. 25 and longer, a made putt is anything that fits within 2 feet of the hole. And if you really get out there at a long distance, a made putt is anything that finishes within 3 feet of the hole. That's as good or better than pros on the PGA Tour do, and that will eliminate 3 putts. That's a made putt. There are too many variables that you can't control to say, oh, it's not made unless it goes in the hole. Now on the scorecard you do that, but in your head, you made the putt if it finishes within those ranges. Now let's talk quickly about a few questions and comments I get every time I post video or teach somebody this putting method. Now one of the first things people will say is, oh, this is like plumb bobbing. It's not the way that I was taught to plumb bobbing. Maybe it's the way that plumb bobbing should have been taught and done all these years, but it isn't. We have a subscriber on the channel who was a retired PGA Tour caddy, and he says, no, it's not like plumb bobbing. It's something different. It's quite unlike anything he's ever seen, and he has also tested it out. Second question that people come up with is, oh, well, what if the putt is flat where you're standing, but it breaks by the hole? That's a very good question. The solution to that is really, really simple. When you see that, or you suspect that, or you think that, then go simply stand at the hole and read back to your ball. That'll reveal any slope right by the hole. Well, what about double breaking putts? This sounds great for a single plane with a consistent slope, but what about putts that are double breakers, or putts that break a lot early and then less late, and all kinds of things like that? Here's my answer. First, this method is highly accurate, and it's accurate enough to put you into that definition of made putt from the distances that I gave you earlier. That's good enough. Second thing, if you know or suspect it's a double breaker, take a reading from the ball to the hole, and then go back and take a second reading from the hole back to the ball. If you have a double breaker, it will reveal that, and you can adjust that. I'll show you more about that when I do the video on calibration next week, and I've also published that, how to adjust for double breakers, in a previous video on this method. People also ask a lot about, what about uphill and downhill putts? And the answer to that is, if let's say it's a downhill putt, you're going to make a softer stroke, the ball is going to be rolling a little bit slower, and it will break more. So you add a little bit to your calibrated aiming point to adjust for the uphill or downhill. And if it's more uphill or more downhill, you adjust accordingly. There's no method of reading greens that makes you an absolute machine, able to calculate everything and hole everything. That's why I gave you a range on what's a made putt. This method will get you accurate enough. If you start the ball on your intended line at your intended speed, it'll be a make by the definitions we've set. I talked about taking a reading from the hole, or a second reading at the hole. People are going to come out and say, oh, that's awful. Now you're stomping around the hole all day taking green reads, and everybody that you play with, you're messing up their line. It's going to be a problem. One is, if I stand straddling the hole with my feet wide apart, then I'm not stomping around the hole. I'm on one direct line, or maybe you could say two, because it goes to both sides of the hole. No different than people walking to the hole to pick up their ball out of the hole, or their tap-ins, or their gimmies if they play where they get gimmies. Not any different from that. One other error that people make is they're holding the putter too high or too low. Critically important that you hold it below the grip at the top of your shaft, and that you're lined up, and they hold their hands. A lot of people hold their hands too high or too low, trying to get the bottom of the shaft on their target line. Here's what you have to do. If I hold it too high, then I'm measuring the angle at a distance out behind the hole, and that's no good. If I hold it too low, I'm measuring the angle to a spot short of the hole, and that's no good. So here's what I do in this exact sequence. I get set up, spine, eye, hold up the putter shaft, get the bottom of the shaft on my target, 3 or 4 feet out in front of me on that straight line. Then I adjust straight up or down that line to get my hand beside or level with the hole. If my hand blots out the hole, it's a straight putt. If my hand and the top of my putter shaft are right or left, that tells me the break and the starting point. Now, sometimes people ask, oh, what if your putter shaft is tapered? Mine is not really, maybe a tiny bit. Most putter shafts are not tapered very much. Here's the thing. This is such a minor difference in tapering that it is not going to matter that much. Plus, you have a tolerance. The hole is 4 1/8 inch wide. That's 3 balls wide approximately. You've got a little bit of tolerance. I promise if you control speed and distance and start your putt on line, the amount of difference in a tapered putter shaft is not going to matter that much, except for on extremely long putts. And we've already talked about that making extremely long putts is putting them in a 3-foot circle. This method is more than accurate enough for that. It is important that you hold the top of your putter below the grip, because the grip is obviously a lot thicker, and that would make this no longer straight vertical. It would be tapered. One last thing. Before you make critical comments, go out and give this a try. Make sure you're not committing the errors that I talked about in using the method, and you'll discover that your green reads will be better if you learn to start putts on line, like I teach in my online course, How to Putt the Right Way. You'll make a lot more, and your misses will be much closer than they have been, and you can wipe out 3 putts simply by improving your green reading with this method. So try it and then make your comments. While you're at it, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, share it with somebody who needs some help with green reading. Check out this video on the screen now, and if you want to stick around, I'm just going to put in a few minutes here of me using this method on the green and holding several putts. And that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 18 feet, dead in the center of the hole. No rehearsals, no second takes. So the rest of this is no talkie-talkie, just a few minutes of music in the background while you watch me use this method. See how close and accurate and fast the green reads are.